the progressives are more in line with what America wants, what people want.
I don't think.
Joy Behar drops some knowledge on The View, educating the panel and their millions of viewers on just how corrupt Joe Manchin and Kyrsten Sinema are. Now, this is a rare moment on The View where there's some actual discussion about the influences behind these politicians. Check this out.
What I think is making Joe Biden's administration shaky right now is what's going on between the Democrats in his own party, between the moderates and the progressives, because he was really on track to be the next Lyndon Johnson with the Great Society programs, which included, I'll just read a few: infrastructure, we know about that, roads and bridges, everything's falling apart. Spending on social programs like childcare, universal pre-K, expanded Medicare, large-scale climate change policy, which we're desperate. We just lost another enormous number of birds, I understand, are becoming extinct. But the Democrats have the numbers to make it happen. But Manchin and Sinema are standing in their way.
Especially Sinema.
They call themselves Democrats, and they will be the ruination of this nation. Those two. First of all, Joe Manchin is never going to vote for climate change things because he gets $500,000 a year from coal production. Kyrsten Sinema she went to some kind of she owned, I don't know what it is, she went to a fundraiser scheduled this week with business lobbying groups that fiercely oppose Biden's social and climate spending bill. They don't want their taxes to be raised, and she's on their team. These people are destroying the country, in my opinion. We are so in trouble in this country. I don't know if people understand how dire the situation is. If Joe Biden loses, if the Democrats lose, the Republicans, who are so corrupt right now, and we all know that, they will move in. Trump will run in 2024. He might win because of all the cheating that's going on. We cannot let this happen. Manchin and Sinema must be brought to task. They are the enemies right now of the democracy, as you pointed out before. That yes, we have a great democracy, but it is really on life support right now because of these two people.
I am trying to figure out what Sinema's end goal is, because she does call herself a Democrat. She represents Arizona, which went blue. She's working with Mark Kelly, who seems to be doing the right thing, seems to be standing on principle. But I don't understand what her goal is, and I don't think she's listening to her
constituents. To keep her job like
maybe
the rest of them. All of those things that I mentioned, childcare, Medicare expansion, those things are so popular with the American people. Does Joe Manchin think that in West Virginia they don't need expanded Medicaid?
Apparently not.
You know, I mean,
Democrat
his
Party
own constituency needs it.
This is great. This is great. And understand why this is great. A YouTube channel like this has a limited audience. Not many normies, for lack of a better term, watch YouTube compared to, say, The View, especially when it comes to older demographics. Having a real education like this into the influences on these politicians, particularly on Manchin and Sinema and their corruption, really helps to educate the average American voter about who's at fault here. Because often the media tries to frame these particular discussions as the progressives are the ones that they're too extreme, they're crazy, asking to expand Medicare, asking to invest into climate change, crazy ideas. But here you have a recentering of the conversation on what the actual facts are. The fact that Manchin and Sinema not only are holding up the progressive agenda, but are holding up Joe Biden's agenda, what he ran on. And Joe Biden is no progressive. So having that education here is very important. Now, unfortunately, the conversation devolved. Of course, once Sara Haines came in and claimed that. I was going to show you the clip, but this video would be so long if I showed you both. You know what? Maybe I'll just show you both. But first, before I get to that second clip, which is ridiculous. First here, just to go over quickly some of what Joy Behar mentioned. Joe Manchin makes $500,000 a year. Personally, this isn't donations. This is personally his money. He makes this from one of the dirtiest coal plants in West Virginia. Also, as I mentioned in my video on this yesterday, Kyrsten Sinema, while resisting the budget bill, is raising money from business groups that oppose the budget bill. I mean, it's just out. The corruption is just out in the open. This should be the main topic on all cable news shows, on all mainstream press. This should be the topic of conversation. But instead, it's about, oh, the moderates. So moderate to oppose expanding Medicare. So moderate to oppose childcare. So moderate to oppose universal pre-K. So moderate to oppose any progress at all on climate change. Yeah, very moderate. These are conservative corporate tools. Let's be clear about that. Now, also, to my surprise, this came out this morning, the White House is in support of what the progressives right now are doing in terms of calling out Manchin and Sinema by name. So this in Politico, White House gives a wink to progressives as they threaten Biden's infrastructure bill. So in an effort to put pressure on Manchin and Sinema, any help is welcome. So because the White House appears to be out of ideas in terms of what they can do about Manchin and Sinema, they are instead relying on progressives right now to do the work, which I think is, I'm glad they're not, that they have no issue with what people like Ro Khanna and Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar are saying about Sinema and Manchin. But Biden and Harris need to be doing a lot more to put pressure on Sinema and Manchin. The pressure right now needs to move from Sinema and Manchin to Biden and Harris, because they're the ones right now that have the ability to put real pressure on Manchin and Sinema. For example, on the fact that Joe Manchin's daughter played a direct part in EpiPen price inflation scandal. Why not go after his daughter? Joy Behar brought up LBJ. That's what he would have done to put pressure on these senators to support his agenda. Why can't Joe Biden do that? But it's, just one pressure point here that they could be using that they are not using. Now, let me show you here the second clip. It's just so bad. It's so bad. But it shows you that even when there's a great moment like this, it can't go without a horrible end to the conversation.
The progressives are more in line with what America wants, what people want.
I don't think the progressives are what everyone. I think the
Absolutely.
more moderate.
They want a living wage, Sarah. They
no,
want
but that's
Medicare
within
for
the
all.
that's
They
within the
want
Democrat
school
Party. That's not just
systems.
progressives.
I'm talking about the Democratic Party.
No, I know,
Yeah.
but I'm saying within that party, including more moderate Democrats, I don't think the progressive extremes represent the majority of Americans.
Well, they want Medicare expansion. They want child care. They want, the streets
So
and
do all-
roads to be fixed up. I don't think that
That's the progressive agenda.
That's the progressive
Yeah,
agenda.
I just-
They couldn't get
Living
elected
wage?
they couldn't get elected
I
in
don't
my
think
state.
so,
They couldn't
yeah.
get elected in Florida. They couldn't get elected in
That's because
Miami.
the Republicans have made the progressives the boogeyman.
Yeah.
When you look at the progressive agenda, that's what they want. A
No,
living
we've made
wage.
ourselves the boogeyman.
At the end of this conversation, and there was more, by the way, I had to cut it off somewhere, but Whoopi Goldberg goes on to say how the progressives are the ones at fault. People like AOC, Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, they're the ones that are at fault for the mainstream press lying about their agenda or lying about what they support or the opposition that they have when there is no opposition to their agenda. What Behar and Sunny Hostin there were saying is exactly right. The vast majority of people, I didn't prep this clip particularly, but you can look this up very easily. Go to Google, search up Medicare for All support, search up living wage support, search up wealth tax support, look at Gallup polling, look at Pew Research. It is very clear where the American people stand on these issues. So, and look up Joe Biden Build Back Better agenda support, and you will see Data for Progress recent polling on this, showing the vast majority of people, including conservative voters, support what is in the Biden agenda. But Sara Haines there, oh, no, the American people don't want expansion of Medicare. The American people don't want universal pre-K. How disconnected do you have to be? But Whoopi Goldberg, Sara Haines, and Anna Navarro there, all spreading BS. Anna Navarro about how a progressive can't win in Florida. No progressive ran in Florida. Moderates lost in Florida, because they were the ones that were backed by all the corporate money in the primaries, which is why there was no progressive in those races. So you had the so-called moderates, in reality conservative Democrats, running in Florida, and they lost. How can you claim that progressives can't win Florida when conservative Democrats literally lost in 2020 in Florida? But just no data, no facts, except for Behar and Sunny Hostin occasionally. So it's just completely, devolved the conversation. But I want to share one last thing here, because even a very conservative Democratic group, Third Way, is supporting the Build Back Better agenda because they understand that they need to do something in order for Democrats to actually win in the midterms. So this from Politico. Quote, it will be moderates who suffer. We will lose moderates if we're running on a record that is not attractive enough to voters. Matt Bennett, the centrist third way, said matter-of-factly. Quote, and we've been very clear, along with the vast majority of Democratic moderates, including the president, that reconciliation is absolutely vital. It's important that we confront all of these crises, including climate change, with something real. And I think we'd agree that the infrastructure bill is necessary, but not nearly sufficient. There you go. Even third way supports the budget bill. And you know why? Because the budget bill, for all the opposition from so-called moderates and reality conservatives against the budget bill, it still doesn't go far enough. The initial conversation was around 10 trillion, not 3.5 trillion, 10 trillion. Then it was cut down to 6 trillion. Then it was cut down further to 3.5 trillion. So what is being left in the budget bill is good, but it's not nearly enough. But so third way understands that this is actually a win for them, as it isn't the 10 trillion that was initially being discussed. Yeah. So hopefully viewers of The View learn something, at least in the first half of that conversation. But be aware that when you hear, I mean, I hope their audience understands that when hosts there come out against or claim that people are against expansion of Medicare, that person, in this case, Sara Haines, really has no idea what she's talking about.